spend in a miserable way.
US News Street. Louis prosecutor, already a subscriber. Or copyright 2019 Lee Enterprises. No, this evening will give way to some clearing late. Low 6F. No, this evening will give way to some clearing late. Low 6F. Updated January the 30th, 2019 at 3:56 p.m. A bit of police tape remains on Thursday, January the 24th, 2019, as evidence of a shooting at home in the 700 block of Dover Place Ware Street. Louis Police Off Street. Louis Police Off Street. Louis Police Off. A bit of police tape remains on Thursday, January the 24th, 2019, as evidence of a shooting at home in the 700 block of Dover Place Ware Street. Louis Police Off. Louis O Street. Jimmy Edwards, the Public Safety Director who oversees the department and reports to Mayor Lido Crewson, said the police department is excellent and that Gardner's criticism was ludicrous. Police Chief John Hayden could not be reached for comment. It was another day in the flame war between the police department and the city's top prosecutor at a time when street weavers are discussed. Street. Louis Police Off. Gardner questioned whether police tried to block drug and alcohol testing of on-duty street. Louis Police Off. Street. Louis Police Off. Friday was involuntary manslaughter and criminal action in connection with Alex's death. The letter to Hayden and Edwards said there was probable cause at the scene that drugs or alcohol may be a contributing factor in a potential crime. But Gardner said, and she complained that the police department had taken urine and breath tests in a way that she believed would block their use in a criminal prosecution. Edwards said it was true. A public employee, the reputations of both sides are taking a beating. Gardner was fined $63,009 this month for using campaign money for personal expenses, and she is still under a cloud for employing an investigator who is accused of lying under oath in the criminal case against former government Eric Britt. The police department saw 4 officers indicted in November on federal charges in connection with the beating of an undercover police officer during protests in St. Louis in 2000. It was the second time this week that Gardner alleged misconduct in a St. Louis police in comments on Tuesday, Edwards insisted the police department was not dysfunctional. We should not vilify the alleged activity that led to the multiple arrests, Edwards said, spanned a longer period. It's important he added, I hold them accountable. He said he would like to develop a mentoring program, because after training, new officers tend to go back to their young colleagues from the academy. He wants them being. Edwards said the best test for drugs would be a hair test and said no one has asked for that yet. Dave Klinger, a criminologist at the University of Missouri St. Louis and a former. Gardner's letter also complained that police officials initially characterized the shooting as an accident or an incident involving the mishandling of a firearm, which she called an inappropriate predisposed conclusion about the potential outcome of a case. It's particularly troublesome given that the Force Investigative Unit is required to conduct objective investigations of officer-involved shootings, she wrote. Edwards said Hayden, when he called the shooting accidental early Thursday, operated on the information he was given, and said investigations are often fluid. He said the police department said Hayden was unavailable for comment, but that he would be able to talk with reporters later this week. Heidra made his first court appearance Tuesday by video from jail. Sheriff's official Heidra and his partner, both 29, were supposed to be on duty early Thursday in the city's 2nd district but were at Heidra's house about 2 miles away with Alex, who was off duty. Charging document. Heidra's lawyer, Talmadge Newton IV, said in a statement that Gardner ignored the seasoned professionals on the scene, who are experienced and entrusted with investigations, when she filed these uninformed and unsustainable charges. However, the police department's own Force Investigation Unit handled the investigation. The department on Robert Patrick is a reporter for The Street. Louis Postus, email notifications are only sent once a day, and only if there are new matching items. Get breaking news delivered to your inbox as it develops.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.